A New Zealand soldier has been killed in Ukraine. For the latest on that, we're joined by Newshub Europe correspondent Lisette Raymer. Lisette, thanks very much for being with us this morning. What more do we know about this Kiwi soldier?
Melissa, the details are very minimal at the moment. We know that they were on leave without pay from the New Zealand Defence Force to travel to Ukraine and help with the war effort. We do know that the New Zealand Defence Force is supporting the family, and we understand that the family will be making a statement once they feel comfortable to do so. But the details around and the circumstances of the death are yet to be fully determined. Kiwis weren't encouraged. In fact, they were discouraged from going to Ukraine since the war started, but many have. We understand that a network of around 100 former and current New Zealand Defence Force soldiers have made that journey over to Ukraine. I was speaking to one of them overnight who has now just returned to New Zealand after doing a couple of months in Ukraine. They saw this news and they said to me that it has only strengthened their desire to get back to Ukraine, because it has reiterated just what is at stake and just how much there is yet to do in Ukraine. A reminder also that these soldiers aren't necessarily on the front line. In fact, very few of them are. Most of them are going to help with the humanitarian effort, to help train the Ukrainian soldiers. At times they're helping to get the refugees to safety and help them with their journey back across the border. So there are many ways they are helping in this war effort.
And Lisa, as you mentioned, you have reported from the ground there in Ukraine. Did you find that there were many international soldiers who were there in an unofficial capacity?
Yeah, I think most of the time it was easier for us to find the foreign soldiers and to speak to them than it was to actually speak to the Ukrainian ones. A lot of the Foreign Legion is more willing to talk about what they are there to achieve and what prompted them to travel over there. Thousands of foreigners have answered the call from President Zelensky that was made very early on for them to come and help in the war effort. In fact, President Zelensky started what was called the Foreign Legion of Ukraine, which provided foreign soldiers to leave their own countries to come in an unofficial capacity and to sign up for the Foreign Legion, and they essentially become part of the Ukrainian army. They are given a salary, they're provided weapons and ammunition. They do have to prove they have a military background, they have to prove their combat experience, they have to do a background check. So there are thousands that have done that. But yes, as you say, there are also others that have just come in a group of their friends. They know they have experience and they've come off their own will, off their own bat, not joined up with that legion, but they've rather made connections with the local command unit and built those relationships so that then they've got an ear to the ground of where they most could be helpful, and they're joining the fight that way. But we often came across people, particularly from around Europe, who would travel to Ukraine to join that effort.
Also travelling to Ukraine today is Boris Johnson. It is 6 months since the invasion began. It's also Independence Day. What has Boris Johnson been doing on the ground?
Yes, a surprise visit. Again, not the first one Boris Johnson has made, but he has arrived in Kiev again today to just reiterate his ongoing support, the UK's ongoing support for Ukraine. They've pledged another £54 million in terms of aid today. There has been a lot of criticism about Boris Johnson being there. He has been on holiday for the last 2 weeks. He's out of office next week. And so a lot of people are wondering why he's travelling all around the world. I mean, this isn't a holiday, obviously. It's an important matter, but a lot of people questioning why he's there and not here in the UK, where the cost of living is surging, in no small part due to the energy prices. And he addressed that today in Kiev. He told everyone in his speech that while the UK and people all around the world may be paying for Putin's evils with their energy bills, the Ukrainian people are paying for those evils with their blood. So a very strong message from the UK Prime Minister that we really need to continue to provide the support that the world has been providing for 6 months now.
Putin has a habit of carrying out attacks on symbolic days. Being Independence Day, a day that Ukrainians would normally be out celebrating, has there been any escalation in tension or concern there?
Well, as you say, there's always that concern around those big days. We had Unity Day back in February, similar concerns were raised. Russia's own Victory Day a couple months later, there were big concerns about attacks being carried out to mark that occasion. And likewise, today there was a lot of concern about an increased number of attacks, and we have seen that, a higher volume of bombs being dropped, missiles hitting Ukraine. Now, it has mostly been centred around the Donbass area, the Donetsk centre, which has been the centre of fighting for the last couple of months. There was a concern, a very real concern, and it was flagged by the US officials that they would try to target Kiev today. Now, that hasn't gone ahead, fortunately. What we find often with these big milestone days is that the US tries to preempt the attack by announcing it in what they describe as a war of information. So they try to predict the attack and therefore put Putin off from going ahead with it, because he famously enjoys the element of surprise. So there has definitely been an intensified number of attacks today, but perhaps not quite the quantity or the location that people had really been fearful of.
Newshub Europe correspondent Lisette Raymer, thanks very much for being with us, Lisette. In a statement from the New Zealand Defence Force, this is the latest statement on the death of the New Zealand soldier, that the soldier was on leave while without pay at the time. He was not on active duty with the New Zealand Defence Force. At the moment, they're still trying to gather more information to understand the circumstances themselves fully, and they're obviously working closely with the family of the soldier to offer their support at this deeply sad time.